Hello, I'm Tommy Moore from the Bartitsu Lab, and in this video we're going to be looking at World War II themed combatives striking from positions of subterfuge. Now again, if you look at combatives as they are today, there's a lot of work based on the fence, being able to discuss, ramp up the violence, tone down the violence, introduce humour, introduce empathy, introduce doubt, using your verbal jiu-jitsu, your hands, your positioning, high fence, mid fence, low fence, the thinking man, doing all of these things to set yourself up for a powerful first debilitating shot. If you follow the Cobra Kai advice, strike hard, strike first, no mercy. Universal rules, no matter what century you're in. We're going to look at some gutter fighting techniques from positions of subterfuge. How can we use strikes from positions where people don't see them coming? And again, these are just some examples. I'd encourage you to practice these, which might be more abstract, and then blend them into how you train and practice in daily life. How do you go from walking around with a trolley in a supermarket? How do you go from standing at the bar? How do you go from being sat on a plane or a train into firing those first shots? How do you build attacks and defences from everyday life positions? This is very, very important. But in any case, we're going to go for some World War II inspired initial attacks. So the first one we're going to look at is just a hands up position, a position of flinch or surrender. I'm just going to make my notes a little bigger for me because I'm getting old and my eyes are shit. Right, so if our hands are up, why might they be up? So an initial thing might be a flinch response. So if I'm at the bar or I'm in a group of people and I get pushed or something whizzes past my head, such as a beer bottle, boom, whether it's a strike, a push, a punch or a projectile, odds are I'm going to go shit. And I'm going to move off this way. Odds are my shoulders come up, my hands come up, my hands are in the air. So I've moved myself. If I've been shoved from behind, I'm going to be slightly off balance. But if I've caught myself, my weight will have stepped down and I'll have my hands up, whether it's a beer bottle at my head or whether it's a punch or a push. This is a normal human reaction. Fuck, ending up here. Another way that this might manifest is in hold-up situations or threats or surprises. It's very, very quick and simple for people to become hugely submissive. Even people that have dominant alpha personalities, if they're scared, if they're worried, if they're terrified, this cower happens all the time. No matter how big or bad you are, there are things that will scare the fuck out of you. So whether you've been pushed, hit, or had something thrown at you and you've gone shit, or you're just generally being submissive, you're generally putting your hands in the air to indicate you don't want any problems. This isn't a falsehood. This is just something that you naturally do. This is something you naturally do. So it's not as rehearsed per se. What fuck? There's a bottle there. Or shit, I don't want any problems. These are things that are relatively normal. So how do we use some of our gutter fighting from it? So one of the first ones off a high submissive fence would be to use. So from here, if I'm off at an angle to the opponent, I'll be driving in the edge of hand blows. So again, typically in World War II combatives, the thumb is flagged. I find this useful to allow me to grip after I've hit, which is very, very useful indeed. But in any case, the flagged thumb was recommended. So it'd go from here, if we're slightly off centre, whoop, smash that straight in. And that could be with the forearm or the true edge of hand. I find these are better towards the trachea. You see a lot of people do them on the sides of the neck, but the side of the neck is actually quite muscular. It's a decent bit of kit, your neck. Even if you don't work out much, they're still relatively strong for a lot of people. You can't really condition the front portions of your throat. So for me, I always like working this directly into the centre of the throat. So again, from a oh shit, or I don't want any problems, if you're slightly off at an angle, whoop! Now, you'll notice that I'm not just using the arm, throwing my body into the shot. I'm driving in to that person because I want to put myself in gear. Here I've stalled, whether I've been pushed or I'm terrified. I need to make myself go up through the gears fast. So if I launch myself at him, then it allows my second hand to follow up that launch. Smash him through with something else. In this instance, it might be tiger claw, palm strike. In either instance, I've gone from a position of submission or fear, one, bursting through with that edge of hand blow, whoop, putting my body in the right direction, and then using that momentum to continue the assault. Whoop, All of these things can flow, but the initial reaction go from shit, hands are high, bang, out here. If that's not a possibility, you can launch these from the front, but they don't have as much sauce on them. So if I can't get myself off centre, luckily most of the time you can, even with a small amount of space, you can angle yourself off that 45 and smash this in. But if you can't achieve that, another thing that you can do is essentially a face smash. So using the hard bit of your palm, going over in an elliptical way, crunching down that face. So smashing down on the front of the face, the fingers drag across the eyes, and the idea is to make him say yes very quickly, to make his head go whoom. Your head has very few muscles that stop forward projection. It's why whiplash when you hit from behind, boom, is so sickeningly awful. There's not much that stops you from the front. Backwards, you've got good neck and back muscles that act as brakes, but straight down the front, it's very, very quick. And if I can shake his brain down the front, I get the same knockout as I would shaking his head back. So in the same scenario, I've either been submissive or I've been pushed and knocked back from here. We're going to launch back with an elliptical arc, with this face smash here. So from here, straight down, straight down, straight down. And again, as soon as you've done that, you put your body behind it because you want to follow up with something else. In that instance, just for an example, throwing an elbow. Doesn't really matter. It depends on you, the relative position, what you're going to do. But the main point is these initial responses from startle. So, or they should then allow you to continue the assault and turn the tide, which is very, very, very important. Those are just two examples from World War II combatives by which we can do that. Okay, now you've also got things such as an exchange. Now, what is an exchange? Well, it's as simple as this. If someone wants to see something from me or take something from me. So if we take a World War II example, it could be that I've got documents or papers or a passport which I'm obliged to show. But if he sees them, I know that I'm fucked because they're forged, a bit dodgy, a bit hokey, not quite kosher. So again, whether I've got a document here, if you're thinking World War II style combatives, or even if you're thinking about a modern street robbery where I'm handing over a phone, a wallet, my keys, there is an exchange. And exchanges tend to happen on this midline. Okay, so the exchanges tend to happen here. So what can I do from here? I can do this with the object or sans object, without the object. With the object is quite useful. So imagine this is a replicant for a phone. I can have the exchange for the phone, and then I can launch this out as if it were a tiger claw. So I can smash that phone, that hard bit of plastic and metal, right into his face. Nice and simple. So that's an option that I've got. If we're a bit closer, I can do a chin jab with it. Just feed it to him. Feed that object to him. Whether that's a phone or even something soft like paper or a passport, I can get the exchange, which has his attention down low, launch that straight into his face. Nice and simple. Now you can do it with the object in your hand, or you can have them fixate on the transactional object. So when you hand over that passport, when you go to give that phone, some attention at least will be on that object because he needs to take it from you. So it's at that juncture, as his attention is to the object, that you could fire. So you could use the object itself, or you could use the object as the lure. So you hand this a little bit lower than you might have planned to, down here, and then fire up top. Either way, you're using the object or the exchange, whether you're thinking vintage World War II combatives or modern day defence. You're either using the object itself, accelerated hard at the opponent, or you're using that to convince them and to get them to think elsewhere. You know, if I want to hit up top, I bring his attention down low. Yeah, sure, have my phone. And smash him up here. These are options for you. So the use of subterfuge down low is often based off the exchange, the exchanging of goods, the exchanging of documentation, Or if you boil it back down to the offence, the exchanging of ideas, conversation. But all things at this range tend to be an exchange of sorts. But I quite like building the exercise based off the phone, valuables or papers. Now, you can also work a proactive subterfuge. And what I mean by that is you are actively playing a role. For example, the cold man, the injured man, the sick man. So again, it also depends on the theatrics, what you're wearing, how you look, how you could pull this off in the scenario. But if you start to walk injured like this or start coughing, or if it's cold, this often can also get you set up for firing a technique. So the subterfuge here is, I'm injured, I'm old, I'm grey, I've got coronavirus, whatever the fuck it is, I'm in this haggard state. And you might be able to play act that way all the way through and be left alone. But you can also hit him from subterfuge and you can use this particular approach. This is typically wound. So here I'm wound, whether I'm coughing, cold, injured, whatever role you're playing. From here, you're often wound up, which means that firing your shots typically falls into the region of edge of hand blows. And that could be to the jaw, to the throat, to the collarbone, whatever you're going to do. Pivot blows, which are sideways hammer fists, from here. Or, if you're a little bit closer and you're just hobbling through, bang, use the elbow. And again, it's about turning in on the opponent. I'm wound up. This unwinds me partially. The next strike I do fully unwinds me. So from here, that's part one. Part two, so you end up in that wound up, unwind, unwind. So from here, you're playing the grey man, the injured man, cough and cold, really cold night, from here. So you're using a subterfuge, you're using acting to build your chances of landing a surprise, devastating shot. But importantly, you keep up that momentum. I'm doing a bit of study into Iedo with a friend of mine, Jason Hulot. One of the interesting things I found about Iedo, reading into it, and I'm only in the early stages, is that it's built off that first initial instinctive strike and then something to seal the deal there afterwards. So you've got something which is fast and nasty, and then something which closes the deal, which in reality manifests itself same in these World War II combatives. My fast and nasty is that's fast and nasty. I continue the assault to put him out with the tiger claw. So again, very common methodologies here. So you've got Mr. Afraid or Mr. Stunned, what you can do. You've got Mr. Transaction, Mr. Friendly, Mr. Helpful. Yes, I'm compliant. Mr. Compliance. Yes, I have my papers. Yes, I have my phone. Keep your eyes on the phone. You've got those options. You've got the grey man or the injured man, the cold person, the sick person, and blast through. Or you've got being able to fight from completely unaware. So if I'm Mr. Completely Stupid, unaware, kicking my heels, hands in my pocket, what can I do? What can I do from this position to launch into extreme violence? Well, a great example is the feet. So from here, I can launch a pretty decent kick or knee right to the bollocks whilst he doesn't feel under threat. So if he's at the side and I'm Mr. Inconspicuous, or I'm just cold, I'm just lazy, I'm playing like I'm in condition white, soon as he starts to walk over, I can pretend not to hear what he's saying, then launch an immediate weapon. In this instance, I'll go with a knee. From here. That initial knee might be what I need to grip. Do it again. So again, I can use my subterfuge, which is in this instance, me being condition white, me being clueless or unaware, kicking the heels, standing around. Bad guy over here asks me a question, pretend not to hear. He repeats the question, from which point then I can launch a non-telegraphic item. So whether I can boot him in the knee or I can knee him in the bollocks, either way, kicking my heels, wham! First shot, gain the attachment, good knee, headbutt, elbow, palm hook, whatever you want to do. So again, the subterfuge here is I'm unaware, kicking my heels, oh, what's that, I didn't quite hear, you've got all this stuff to play with. So again, get used to these scenario-led positions of being inconspicuous. Sometimes they're natural, like projectile at your head. Fuck, what was that? Sometimes they're subterfuge. I'm injured, I'm cold, don't want no problems, I'm just walking home. Either way, looking harmless as a way to be harmful is an intrinsic part of how World War II combatives, and indeed modern day combatives, is and was used. So make sure you give it a go. Practice your fence, absolutely, your conversational subterfuge, but also get used to everyday acts. Cash machine, paying at the bar, walking home at night, walking home with groceries in bags, being able to go from I'm walking groceries here to whoa, doing something is really important to drill. It's as important to shadow box those elements as it would be your traditional shadow boxing. So get used to scenario-led drills in how you work out, how you train, how you spar. They're very, very important. But those are a couple to have a bit of a play with.